Hey guys, Probable1701 here, and today we are going to talk about Season 23 of Classic Doctor Who, the Trial of a Time Lord, Parts 1 through 4, known as The Mysterious Planet. And I am one of those people on Trial of the Time Lord. I tend to refer to the episodes by their sub-names, The Mysterious Planet, Mind Warp, Terror of the Vervoids, because that just seems to make more sense. The reason I just watched this again yesterday, because I really do want to do a video about Robert Holmes soon, because I absolutely adore Robert Holmes and his Doctor Who scripts. But when I was going over them in my head, I couldn't remember a lot about The Mysterious Planet, because I didn't watch it right when the box set came out, because I'd watched all of Trial of a Time Lord back in 2019, so it was so fresh in my mind I didn't watch all of it. All I did was watch the new version of Vervoids and The Ultimate Foe. So it'd been a couple years since I saw it, and for some reason I just couldn't quite remember everything that went on. I just remembered basically the outline of it. So I rewatched it, and I actually really enjoyed it. I think The Mysterious Planet is underrated. When people are talking about Robert Holmes stories, there's a few of, a lot of them are held to the reverence they deserve because he's done some amazing stories. But some of his, don't quite, I think, get the credit they deserve. And this is one of them. I actually think The Mysterious Planet's a good story. I was enjoying it the whole time I was watching it yesterday. First off, the script is great. I absolutely love the script. It's not, perfect or some of his best work. But much like the Crotons, while a little simplistic, I think it really gets the job done. If you've watched my channel, you're probably familiar with the fact I think the Crotons is very underrated, which is also a Robert Holmes script. I actually really liked the Crotons and found it a lot of fun. Really, the only complaint I had was the Crotons themselves, their character design, which isn't Robert Holmes' fault. He just wrote the script. Same thing here. I think a lot of the complaints you might have against The Mysterious Planet are not the script's fault. It's the execution. Although, personally, I think the execution's done pretty well as well. One thing I noticed I really liked about The Mysterious Planet, besides just the script, which again I really enjoy, is the music. The music in this story is really, really good. As I was watching it, all 4 episodes, there were many times where I'm like, I really like the music here. The music's really good here. I really enjoy that. It happens so many times that I told myself I'm going to have to make sure I mention the music when I do the review, because the music is so good in this story. I really, really enjoy it. And that's not always the case with 80s Who. Sometimes it's the music doesn't work for me, even in good stories like Battlefield. I like Battlefield a lot. I do not like the incidental music in Battlefield. I think it really pulls the story down a bit. I'd love to see Battlefield rescored with different music. But in The Mysterious Planet, the music works really, really well. I like a lot of the robot designs. The L1 robot looks basic, but it's supposed to because it's an L1. The L3 is a double-edged sword. I like the way they did kind of the arms and the legs to make it look like it's not just, a person in a suit. I mean, you can tell it's a person in a suit, but they tried to make it not look like a person in a suit. It looks miles better than the robot in Robot. I'll put it that way. You look at the robot that's in the story Robot, and then you look at the L3 that's in this story, it's a much better robot design. So while there's parts of it that can make you cringe, I also like some of the other aspects of it and think they did pretty good. I really had to shift gears going into this story, which did take about 10 minutes to get used to because I've been watching, all of Season 8 basically, so I was really in that headspace of the Jon Pertwee era of Doctor Who, and I found that when I went from 5 Jon Pertwee stories and all the behind-the-scenes stuff to watching a Colin Baker story, it took a second for me to mentally adjust to it, if that makes any sense. Like, if I'm moving from, say, an era of Doctor Who to another era that's close, like, say, John to Tom, it's not so difficult. But if I'm moving from one era of Doctor Who to a totally different era that's where they're just separated by a decade or more, sometimes I have to adjust to it. And it really did take me about 10 minutes of adjustment to really click with the story, which isn't the story's fault. It was me just having to mentally adjust to it. Colin and Nicola, I really like how they do here. You can really see that the 6th Doctor and Perry have grown closer. I like when you first see them, they're kind of walking arm in arm, and they're actually having a pretty friendly banter. They're not arguing, even when the Doctor's like, when they're like, is there any intelligent life on this planet? He goes, oh, you mean besides me, of course. he says it in this playful banter way, not this arrogant way like we saw in season 22. And they're talking, and they're having a little fun. And at one point, he kind of bumps her elbow with his elbow, which, a very friendly gesture just boop, as he's talking. And I really thought that was cute and very adorable. I made a mental note of it when I saw it, because it's the kind of thing I would do with like my friends, especially like female friends. How you doing? You have this playful banter with them, and it's nice. It's nice to see that. We see that at the end of the story too, when he's walking toward the TARDIS, and she's like, "But the TARDIS is that way." Well, of course, we know the TARDIS is that way. And he smiles, and they turn and walk the other way. And again, it's very playful, very banter. So it's nice to see that their relationship has improved in this story. I like how the dialogue is written. That's one thing I love about Robert Holmes. He writes really good dialogue, very believable dialogue. It's like the opposite of George Lucas, where George Lucas writes stuff that you would write, but that you would never actually say. Robert Holmes writes stuff that's very believable in what they say. He's very, very good with dialogue. I like Joan in this, playing the kind of leader of the female tribe, especially when she's kind of calm and talking. She's really good. She gets a little over the top with it when she's actually running around commanding stuff like that. But it's a playful campy, not a bad campy. Like, I was never rolling my eyes. It was more of a, she just looked like she was having fun with it role type of thing. And that works pretty well for me. I did have some issues with the two little twins, basically. They weren't really twins, but they looked like twins that were working for the L3 robot. I found them a little annoying, but that was more the execution than the scripting. I actually liked the scripting of what they were saying. I just found the actors they chose for it to be a little grating. But I actually really like this story. I think it's a good story. I like, I found the trial scenes not as bothersome here. Like say Terror of the Vervoids, whenever it cuts back to the trial, it's kind of jarring, going back and forth to the trial. It's not so much in this one. The first time it happened, it did a little bit, because I'd actually just about forgot the trial, because there is a nice little stretch before it goes from the story back to the trial. So the first time I was like, oh yeah, there is a trial. But after that, I didn't really find it bothersome like it would be in later stories. As for the trial scenes themselves, for the most part, they don't bother me. I don't like the Doctor constantly calling the Valley Yard like the boat yard and the graveyard. It seems childish and silly, the name calling. I do think Colin and Michael and Linda do a great job as these three in the court scenes with the Inquisitor, the Valley Yard, and of course the Doctor. I really like Michael. He's really good here. You almost swear he's got some personal grudge going on against the Doctor here, just the way he acts. It's really, really wonderful. Linda's really great as the Inquisitor. She has a very detached way, a professional way of dealing with the matter. I could see her like as a judge, as an Inquisitor. She works really, really good there. So I actually do like the court scenes in this story. I don't find them as jarring going back and forth between them as I would from stories later in the run. So I understand some people think maybe not the most of this story, and it is easy to forget it because not as much happens in this story, whereas the other stories of the season have really big events. Things really pick up pace more in Mind Warp, because Mind Warp, is Perry's last story and the way it ends, so that's very memorable to people. Then you have Terror of the Vervoids, which besides being a good story has the introduction of Mel, so it's memorable. Then of course you have The Ultimate Foe, which is the final story of the season, so it's memorable. So this one can kind of, the Mysterious Planet can kind of get lost in the shuffle because of that. And I think a lot of the people who don't think much of it just haven't watched it recently. Like even me, I couldn't remember a lot of it. It just didn't stick out as much in my mind. That's why I had to rewatch it. But now that I've rewatched it, I do enjoy it. I think, like the Crotons, it's very underrated. And I really think people should give it another chance. Oh, and by the way, that opening shot is probably the best special effects shot in all of classic Doctor Who. Not including like special editions and stuff, but it looks really good. When the camera zooms in on like the Timelord space station and pans around to the TARDIS being drawn into it, that is an amazing shot. and even beats some of the special effects shots in the early seasons of the modern series. That is a stunningly beautiful shot, and God knows what it must have cost. But yeah, I give them props for attempting to do that and for putting the budget into that, because that's a really, really nice opening shot. So yeah, the Trial of a Time Lord, The Mysterious Planet. What do you think of it? Have you watched it recently? How do you like it? How do you like it? Just the script, not going by the execution, but the script itself. What do you think of that? Do you think Robert Holmes was on it? Keep in mind, Robert Holmes was sick at the time he wrote this, and would pass away shortly after. I believe he had hepatitis, sadly. This would be his last full story. He also did manage to write the first part of The Ultimate Foe before he passed. But I think, especially considering his health, he did a really good job. What do you think? I'm curious to hear you guys, your take on the story and how it relates to Robert's other work. Comment down below. You know, I always enjoy interacting with y'all. Other things to do, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications. I have started a Patreon page if you would like to contribute to that. You can find a link to that down below. But most importantly, stay safe out there, and thank you for watching.